I've become a little bit obsessed with the crystalline grid. And to be honest, I don't know why. There's not a whole lot of research or information out there about what the grid is and how the energetic lines may or may not show up, especially from like a scientific, sort of quantifiable lens. Maybe you've heard of ley lines, vortexes, these like energetic spots on the planet. I do think many people recognize when they go to these places, when they visit all these different sacred sites on the planet or natural sites, that they can feel something. But at the same time, for me, my highly kind of academic research mind wants to have verifiable like proof. And so what better way than to explore an experience personally? So I thought I would share on occasion some of my logs, some of my experiences of what I would say is being kind of like a crystalline grid worker or activator. And many of you are that. So feel free to join me on this journey to go and explore the places you feel called to explore, whether it's physically with like your physical earth body or if it's with your light body, which today I'm going to share with you my experience using the light body travel meditative sort of practice. So if you're new here, my name's Fola. So glad to have you join. Let me know in the comments, what are your experiences and thoughts about the crystalline grid? What does it mean to you? And has it maybe shown up for you in your life? Myself, when I was kind of researching about the crystalline grid, there was this realization that there are many sites that are considered amongst, I guess, the common kind of like perspective that are very potent and hold the energy that can help resonate with particular chakras or energy systems, both in our body, but also from the earth's chakra system. So the 7 chakras or major chakras in our body, the crown, brow, or third eye, the throat, the heart, the solar plexus, the sacral, and the root, these all correspond to endocrine glands or hormonal glands in your body. They're like really potent energy centers that help you function as a human. These also are showing up on the earth plane. And so there are many different types, many different places that are considered to be these chakra points. And for myself in my life, I realize I've been to many of these places, not knowing what they were, but recognizing the power that they hold. And one in particular, my hope today in my journey was to go and to connect to it, thinking, oh, well, that must be the root chakra. And this one particular place is Uluru in Australia. This actually, though, when I did my research, is apparently connected to the solar plexus. The root chakra most people consider would be in Mount Shasta. And that kind of was just really, I guess, made me consider like, oh, well, what feels true to me? And as I sat with it, I'm like, no, there's something about this red rock, this place that is considered amongst the Aboriginal people in Australia to be like the cave of creation. I guess we could call it the dreaming point, the creative point of humanity and of like life, from what I understand. To me, that, you mean even the fact that it's red, I guess, maybe is what's kind of calling to me. But from this birth place, what is that rootedness that it holds? And so my intention going into my meditation today was to go to this rock and to experience the energy of the rock. But of course, as with all things, that was not what happened. So I'm going to share that with you. A little bit though about, I guess, maybe how I entered into the space was to grab a crystal. And so just to note about the practice I had, what was feeling true for me was to just sit in silent meditation, holding a quartz crystal. It's kind of like a pointed quartz crystal that I have. I smudged it with lavender and sage, and kind of also just smudged and cleansed myself with the smoke, and sat in a silent meditation. I rooted down to the earth through both feet, connecting to what was kind of coming through was like the earth star, which felt like the core of the earth, and then drawing energy up that actually was a red color. So that felt fitting for the root chakra. Drawing the energy up through the soles of my feet, up through each part of my body, and really, really connecting to the energy moving through the bones of my body, through the joints, the tendons, kind of like the structure that holds my body into being. When it got to the top, to the crown, and it moved through all the different like bones of the skull, which I haven't really experienced that before, it then opened in the crown, and that like star chakra, star light kind of started shining down and through, bringing a connection to the above and the below. So this kind of helped me relax and just kept me in this place of like chill kind of, presence. And with that, I kind of like asked the crystal to guide me to where the ley line is. And I felt let's back there. What happened next was I created like a little star and like the center of light that I felt like first needed to be in my third eye, but then it dropped down into my womb space, into the sacral point, or also the belly button you could use. That to me is a very shamanic practice where we will link through like our umbilical cord to the light body, which I started to form in front of me. The light body being this kind of like, dare I say, like perfected version of my essence as a physical form, but in an energetic kind of ethereal form. And so forming that, I then linked my light body to my physical body with this umbilical cord, this energetic cord, so that I could easily transfer my consciousness from that little star that I was forming and growing, that like energy ball. I moved it into the light body and then started like experiencing the reality, or what I was experiencing as my light body, with my physical body still sitting in the chair. So that's an important part with like magical practice. So now inside the light body, kind of like perceiving through that light body's eyes and senses, I, still holding the crystal in my hand, asked that crystal to guide me to the root chakra point along the crystal grid. And what happened was, it's like I was trying to find the ley line, or one of the like lines of energy that link all of these different vortexes and energy centers. But I couldn't do that from like the space I was in my house. So my light body kind of like was lifted up until it could see and link. Because I feel like what was coming through was that these lines of energy are quite like large. They're not like, just a thin piece of string running through the earth. Like you wouldn't almost even know you're in it if you're, in it, if that makes sense. So being lifted up, I was able to better perceive with like my light body eyes. And then the energy started to pull, and I was like, okay, we're going to the root chakra. Like, again, I'm like, okay, I believe this is Uluru in Australia, the red rock. Not Mount Shasta, but I'm open. I'm open to where it is it wants to take me. And we started going kind of like, I would say, according to the map, sort of like a southeast direction, but more south, like southeast, if I could say. And then I started to notice I was like picking up on medicine wheels that had been like placed there across millennia, which I know those exist here in Alberta where I live. I haven't really seen any. I've seen some in Saskatchewan that were placed there by the traveling Indigenous people, or like the Indigenous people living in those spaces. But in Alberta, not so much. So I could see myself passing specifically over two, which I'm going to have to look on my map and see if I can find anything, do some research there. But I was like, oh, okay, my ego mind, I think, kind of was like assuming I know what's going to happen. This is, to me, in meditation, it's about quieting some of this mind, but recognizing it's still going to be present. It's just not like getting caught up in the story of it. And so as we continued down this journey, it ended up taking me to, I believe it's a provincial park. It's like kind of like a very sacred space known as I think it's like Writing on Stone Park. And this is a area which I have actually been to physically before. A few years ago, I went and got to witness the energy there. And that's where this crystal took me. And I was like, oh, the ego mind sort of like, oh, we're just having a stop here, right? Like you're just guiding me clearly through something till we get to Australia. Even though maybe we should have gone like southwest, buddy. Anyway. But no, what happened was this was like the stop. And that left me in this place of, okay, receptivity, what is showing up here? Why here? And a lot of information started coming through. It felt as though like galactic energies, which I had called in initially, were kind of like wanting to come through to just be in a place of presence here. And I looked at the stone where there is like hieroglyphic, sort of like writing. It's like considered some very old form of writing. I could see the kind of like open landscape. It's sort of like a valley with like lots of like new growth of plants and vegetation coming through. And I could feel the energy of like the rattlesnake, which is like actually an animal that lives in that area. And I could also feel the energy of the sage, like prairie sage, which exists in that space. And so what was happening here is I was present in this park, in this like, to me, I would call it like a sacred site. I could just feel like the memories kind of activating the crystalline grid, especially activating back up through the line that we had followed through those medicine wheels. I'd love to see how those are all kind of interconnected. So maybe one day I will look that up and actually plot it on a map, like longitude, latitude, and so forth. But I was there for a while and I could feel like just some activation, I guess I would say. And I was mostly surprised. My like ego mind, I would say, was surprised of like, oh, like this here. And it just like dawned on me. It's like, this is like the root. This here is like the root chakra space, sort of sourcing the energy ancestrally, the stories, the bones, like, yeah, whatever that might be. And I guess maybe a part of me feels a little disappointed. Like, oh, okay, well, I guess not Uluru, but that's okay. And a message came through, like, of just being with what is here in the present moment. That every area, every place we, I guess, walk on this planet has multiple points, multiple vortexes, also depending on like the culture, the ethnic background, and so forth. So we can't like assume that there's only like these 7 chakra points across the globe. There's like multiple different, I guess, systems that exist. And it then became apparent I was going to be guided through like the system of Alberta or the system of, I'm not sure if it's like, I didn't get a whole lot of information on that. So I don't want to speak to that at this point. But after like however long it was, I was maybe in this meditation experience for like 45 minutes to an hour, I want to say. After that, I then was like, okay, it must be done, because my intention was to do just the route. And of course, no. So what happened from here was I was kind of like led intuitively to start to draw energy into my body that was the sacral chakra, orange. So my body started to fill with an orange light, and I felt it transmitting to like this light body. And the light body began to travel to the Slave Lake, a beach in Slave Lake. I believe it's on the east side of the lake, which I also have been physically. So, to me, it's like, okay, if I've been to these places, does that make it easier to link up, or I'm creating them? But it's interesting because, again, the mind's like, oh, well, I know I've been to other parts of Alberta, BC, that would be considered chakra points, like Lake Louise, for instance, at the Emerald Lake, I think it's called. Places like that, but it's like that wasn't where we went. And I'm kind of like wondering how high a tie of indigenous kind of perspective or these sites are. Slave Lake, I don't recall seeing anything there at the lake specific that was considered like a sacred meeting ground or anything like that. But that lake, I was just on the beach in this like journey today on the beach, and could sense the energy of the water, sense like what came through actually was first Yemaya, Yoruba Orisha from the Ifa tradition. She is considered the goddess of the ocean. Her counterpart is known as Oshun, who is like the goddess of the water and the rivers. And I've had this happen before, like not just in journeys where it's just, I'll get a thought of one of those Orisha and the other will pop in. And I have like a feeling of like competition. And in the journey today, I remember just thinking Yemaya as I saw the water. And then my mind went into like, well, no, it should be Oshun, because it's like a closed body of water, not the ocean, even though the lake literally looks like the ocean. It expands so far, you can't even see to the other side. And I had these thoughts of this like competitive energy between the two of these Orisha. And I just was like, well, that's not important. Like I tried to like put it kind of to the side. Okay. But then what happened is I started having thoughts about other people in my life and other scenarios that exist around jealousy. And then it hit me. I was like, oh, like this sacral chakra point, this watery energy here is healing something around competition, about jealousy, envy, these sort of like heavy emotions that can keep us in like a story of not enoughness and so forth. And so as soon as I just recognized that, this is how my mind works in meditation, I guess I would say, call it, or my awareness is like I'll get certain like themes or ideas, sometimes in multiple forms when I don't pick up on it right away, right? Because it's easy to think, oh, I'm thinking, like stop thinking, go back to the breath or whatever. But in this case, it was like, okay. And I just let that go, and I just allowed the energy to do what it wanted to do in this point, filling that sacral, allowing the flow, and also allowing receiving as the activation. And I could kind of see like galactic energies above in the sky kind of really opening up. Like, I don't know if I want to call it a portal or just opening up like the space. And whatever that container is that is in that area of Slave Lake. That's how I would describe that. I think this is Greater Slave Lake, too. I'm trying to think back to what one it is. Anyways, so great. Here I'm then at the point of like, okay, we've done 2 chakras. That's enough, right? Like I can come back, do maybe, another one, and other journeys. But it was like very evident I was being pulled somewhere else, even though I didn't know where. And it was like, no, like solar plexus chakra. Solar plexus chakra needs to happen as like this kind of like I think in Kundalini they call it like the lower triangle, those 3 lower chakras. They're not because they have a lower vibration. Actually, I think the lower chakras are the most important chakra. This was more about bringing the balance to the 3 lower chakras to ground like humanity and to ground the energy. And so I was like, okay, well, let's do it. So what? Yellow light starting to come through in the physical body, transmitting into the etheric astral light body. And I let the crystal start to guide me. And I really, at this point, was like, I have no effing clue now what's happening. I'm going to just completely like surrender. So maybe that's why 3 needed to happen. And I was taken up north, like to where I am thinking it's like Fort McMurray area. I have never been up that way. I've never been anywhere near like the oil fields or, have any clue of what that even entails. But it was instant. I knew like where. I was like, we're in an oil field. There's like a bunch of different things happening here. And there's a lot of people, a lot of machinery, a lot of like humanity putting an imprint and impacting the earth. And I just kind of felt a bit at a loss here. Kind of like, ugh, icky. Like, I didn't want to do this. Like, this is not how I would envision the solar plexus chakra, the solar plexus, whatever. So just breathing, because like, honestly, I guess I'm maybe even still feeling a little bit just like of a shock at what was brought through, what I felt. And what I could liken it to is the lack of, it's twofold. It's like the lack of consent that the earth was asked for, or the opportunity, when people just come and like start doing things on the land. And also the power of the earth as she is so just giving, takes so much BS from humans that we like, build like concrete structures on her and dig up the earth and like make animals move so that they're not like, running through our backyards and like things like this. There was this mixture of like immense power and anger and sorrow and just love. I guess that's how I would explain it. I'm really kind of at like a loss of words for it because it was just such. I literally started crying because I was just feeling like an overwhelm, and I could see the holes, the like depths of where as humans we've been like going into her to get this resource that we use for our vehicles, and I dare I say even almost pollute the earth more, which, I have a vehicle. It's not a hybrid car. It's not electric. I enjoy gas stoves. I enjoy the benefit of the oil company, especially being in Alberta. And then there was this feeling of like gratitude for the earth, for being in this place where, I've kind of shared here on the channel the loud neighbor's noise that sometimes comes through and how I feel completely empowered and at a loss. And I was just thinking, oh my God, like the earth has had, and I literally actually started hearing and feeling like jackhammer type of like pounding, like dun, 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 and like feeling that vibration. And I was like, that's how I feel when I'm like laying in bed and maybe it's like 11 at night. I could hear the bass from the neighbors. Imagine the earth feeling like 1,000 times more than that constantly. And again, I don't know how the oil field works. I've never gone up north. I don't know how long it is that they work on the land and then give it a break. I think there might be some parts that are put into, like, some rules or expectations put into place to allow for that space or pause. But again, I'm not aware of it, but I really actually want to know now, how does that work? And in this place, the main energy that was coming up around the solar plexus was this power over others, this power. And what it felt like was, what I was receiving, I guess, was, this is a very masculinated energy impacting the feminine energy of the earth. Whether it's men working there or women working there, whatever in between, our machinery is literally a force of energy, like the masculine that is entering into the open, receptive feminine of the earth. And it was like I could feel the seeking of power, that the feminine earth holds that solar plexus energy. And here as humans, we have felt the need to go into her to search for the power, which is fun. That's what oil does. It gives us power, right? Electricity. Dare I say, from a political stance of who owns the most oil, but also it literally lights up things. Like, it gives us this ability to drive our vehicles. And so there was this really intense dynamic around power imbalance. What does power balance look like? And how has the feminine been in a place of still giving, of forgiveness, self-forgiveness and other forgiveness and compassion? And so there was a lot of energy moving here, and I just could feel the entities and the ancestors of the land, the contribution that the land trees wanted to be from elsewhere and the galactic energies to that particular point, that place. And the main word that was coming on here, whereas with the sacral, it was like this healing of the jealousy and envy. Here it felt like there was a lot of the word cooperation. This was not me entering into that place to activate and be witness to the earth, then creating a revolt against the machinery and the people working there. Though I think that probably happens too. Maybe will happen. But what it felt like ultimately was this cooperation energy between the structures that are imposing and that which is existing there already and has since the beginning of the creation of Earth. And I guess from that point, it just feels like this place of recognizing that polarity. The sorrow, the grief, the feelings that were maybe a little bit more icky kind of seemed to subside at this point, and I just was witness to what was taking place in this field, this I don't even know what they call it, an oil field, this part of the grid. And then from there, what happened, the most magical thing was other root chakra points, other vortexes across the planet started to bring energy and share energy through the crystalline grid to that point. And that was the most magical thing, just being witness to the interconnectedness of all of Earth, where one place is suffering, another place is giving in love. And yeah, it was a beautiful thing to be a witness of, or to. And with that, it just felt complete. I returned back to the body. did a bit of a cleansing with the chakra points and like energy coming, especially from high above, like crown, the star chakra. And I was like, okay, I guess that was that. Those are maybe 3 points of chakra energy that needed to be looked at within this Alberta provincial realm or whatever, not attaching to what it needs to look like, because evidently that doesn't matter. But I feel really grateful for that opportunity. And I had shared before, and something I've been sitting with is this idea that I and many of you listening, especially if you've made it this far, resonate because you resonate with this because you too are like an activator of energy on this planet. You are a being that's been brought here. You agreed to be here now to create and be aware of these sort of changes in the energetics of the earth, the energetics of these crystal grids. And I think this is going to be a part of a journey that we're exploring just as we go through it. No one really has the answers, but I really feel like more needs to be explored here. So I invite you to continue the journey with me if you feel called to experiment, dare I say, with this sort of work yourself, this sort of energetic process, and see what shows up anywhere you go, anywhere. Doesn't need to be traveling the world astrally, because some people, maybe that's not your thing. Maybe it's entering into a physical space somewhere and tuning into the energy and seeing what happens with your intention. And so with that, I will complete. And yeah, let me know in your comments what showed up for you, what your experiences have been, what energies moved. And I guess I'll see you in another little vlog, whatever we're going to call this. Okay, bye.